G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Stu, that's Dyl, and we're the Fantasy Bros. We're very excited to have once again partnered with the GameDay Squad this NRL season to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League in 2026. Well, it's Wednesday, and you know what that means. Team List Tuesday has dropped. We have plenty of points to discuss, all things round 7. Dyl, welcome, mate. Before we get into those positional previews and reveal the players we hope to take us up the leaderboards, let's go around the grounds. How were your round 6 results, mate?
Do we have to? G'day, Stu. G'day, viewers and listeners as well. Look, you can see on screen there, no top 20 finishes from me. I think I said last week I had one of my worst NRL rounds that I've ever had in GameDay Squad. I thought, why not just go one step better and put on an even worse performance? Unfortunately, just a couple of pods didn't come off, and just a couple of small, errors there in terms of playing Nico Hines and Jerome Hughes. If I went Jaden Campbell, for example, that could have been completely different. And obviously a lot of coaches were burned by Harry Grant over Blake Brayley as well. And it was just something small like that, which meant I'm not inside the top 20. So it's those minor things that are going to be the big difference. The one thing I can hang my hat on, though, is I did make the Scotty Drinkwater call over Dill Edwards. And at halftime, Scotty Drinkwater was cruising on 50 plus. And then I think Prison Mike in Discord commented and said he's going to get less than 60. And it took pretty much that whole second half before he did crack that 60. So, thanks to Scotty Drinkwater, I was able to get over the line there. But, not great viewing, but hopefully this week we can have a massive bounce back. And I've given the boys a spray and we're ready to go. How about you, mate? How did you end up?
Yeah, not the best week. Obviously, after the highs of first in Classic, first in Challenger last week, I'll continue to remind people about that for as long as I can. But it's always hard to repeat that pretty high or that lofty standard. 9th in Stats Lab primetime competition for the Thursday and Friday, 19th in the other 24. So some reasonable finishes there, but really similar player picks to you, obviously in the Classic, the Challenger, and the Champion teams, which didn't work out in our favour. So no top 20 finishes in those ones, which definitely are my priority at the moment. Tommy Chester was an excellent shout. I know I mentioned him on the pod, and then you made a nice reel about him in preparation for that primetime competition. So hopefully a few listened and jumped on that Tommy Chester, and he is quickly becoming very fantasy relevant and someone that we probably will be talking a lot more going forward because of just how well he is performing in that centre position. Mate, not a lot of success there in the rugby league sphere, but tell us quickly about how you went in AFL.
Mate, I think I've said it a couple of times on the show. I know very little about AFL. I love watching it, but in terms of fantasy, I don't know enough to feel like I can compete. So all I do is just sit there after our show and take in the AFL bros in Pity and Haz and would have any of the special guests that join them on the show. I just take in all that information and put together a side in Starter and Contender. And, mate, you wouldn't believe it. First last week in Starter, first overall in Starter for the season so far, and also Jacob's third in Contender. So it's all thanks to the advice from the Fantasy Bros, Haz and Pity. So a big shout out to them, and no doubt they're listening as well, and they're taking some of our advice, and hopefully we can pay them back. But I'm going along pretty nicely there, and mate, I wouldn't mind a little AFL prize card at the end of the season just to have to my name as well. That might be some great trade bait for any NRL cards as well. That'd be great to see.
Sounds like you might be joining them on the 7:30 edition. Of course, they'll be following us in 90 minutes time. G'day, we've got Sif Kanga in the chat. Once again, I think he was here at about 5:30, 5:40, half an hour before we kicked off. So howdy, let's get rowdy. As usual, Jado's here as well. G'day, mate. Thanks for joining us. Anyone else, say g'day in the comments. Let us know how you went in round 6. And we want to bring back a little bit of a fun competition. If you want to drop a random NRL player's name from the post-2000s era that you think Dyl and I haven't thought of in this calendar year, we're going to choose the best one and give away a card a little bit later on. It may be a Diamond, it may be a Tigers player, and he'll come up in conversation at some point during today's episode. So let us know in the conversation, in the comment section. I think it was Matt Hilder, waltzing Matt Hilder last week that one. So see if you can get something along those lines. And off camera, I just mentioned to Dyl, Rory Kostjason was the first one that popped into my mind, and that's the type of guest that you need to win the prize. So it's got to be someone that we haven't thought of. Maddie's here as well. G'day, Maddie. Thanks for joining us once again. And Jado and Matt have already started rolling in with the guesses. Dyl, just remind everyone what our Wednesday shows will look like, and then we'll get into things.
Yeah, mate. So if you're brand new to the show, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Our Wednesday night, we're going to look at the best players across each position, as well as those bench spots. We're going to discuss the important start sets, talk about some suspensions and injuries as well that are going to mean we might bring some players in. We're going to reveal who we're going to play in that all-bronze starter squad. So if we were playing starter, these are the players that we would play. As well, we're going to touch on some salary pods. We're going to talk through a number of potential point of differences throughout the show. We'll touch on some key players as well for the under-24 competition, then plug both the Stats Lab Primetime Comp as well as the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. Reminder, we do have a show on Sundays, so make sure you get along to that as well. And then, as always, everyone's favourite to win some cards, we're going to have the BroDown ShowDown. So if you haven't got around GameDay Squad yet, make sure you do so, signing up using the promo code FBRL26. We say it every week. There's still plenty of time. You know, you've missed a couple of weeks so far in terms of we're now up to round 7, but you still have a chance of winning up to $5,000 in cash each and every round of the NRL. And maybe you might not get that season-long prize card potentially, but there's plenty of cash and pack prizes to be won. So make sure you jump along onto the website or download the app, use the promo code FBRL26. Don't forget as well to check us all of our socials, We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikToks, Facebook, Insta as well. We'll be sending out shorts each and every round to help you try and succeed at each of the competitions. So I've got a pretty good pod for the primetime comp as well coming up. Hopefully we'll see that tomorrow. So make sure you follow us along. Just search at FantasyBros AU.
Beautiful. Let's get straight into the positional previews then. We'll start with the hooker position, of course. You've got to select one of them in your squad. You can select up to 2 more on your bench, but we normally look for a middle forward or an edge forward to fill those bench positions, particularly those guys that have a little bit more upside. We're wary of our audio viewers. We do have a couple of people listening the day after a Thursday morning commute to work or an afternoon. Pre-Thursday night footy is always a good way to catch up on everything GDS. So in our strongly consider for our hookers, we've got Harry Grant, Reece Robson, Phoenix Crossland finds his way into the strong difference players, Appy Corridell, Jacob Little after a nice big performance, looks to be getting maybe a few more minutes. Damien Cook is on our fade list alongside Sonny Luke after, he was impressive against the Broncos. He's on our fade list. He is getting the start. I just don't think he can repeat that after just how good he was last week. We've got a comment here about the hooker from Maddie. Maddie says, with Brayley out this week, who's your hooker one for the week? Is it as simple as we just default to Harry Grant since he is somewhat reliable? Where are you looking with no Brayley?
Yeah. I think it is a default at the moment. I feel like I am being forced to just fall back on Harry Grant. The Raiders have given up an average of 36 to hookers. There's no real massive score within that either. They've let in 52 for Blake Brayley in round 4, and that's about it. So I feel like it's kind of, you're right, it is a default. I actually kind of like the Phoenix Crossland shout. He had a decent game last week that, we talked about in the Sunday Showdown where he went head-to-head with Appy Coruscant. And you played Appy and I played Phoenix Crossland, and he just came out on top there. He is averaging 47 GDS points with 79 minutes on average on the park. He did make a massive 63 tackles against the Tigers last round. On average, that his tackle count's more sort of around that 45 mark. So I don't know whether that was the style of game that was being played. The Tigers had a lot of attack. The Knights didn't really look great in attack when they did have the ball. So that potentially could lead to that massive tackle count. But look, I guess the thing is Phoenix Crossland offers very little in the way of attack. So I guess that there's sort of a ceiling involved there, whereas Grant, we know he's already had some big attacking games, albeit early in the season, and he's sort of fallen off a bit. But I just feel like at some point the Storm are going to have to bounce back. And against your boys, they have a pretty good rivalry where I think the Raiders were sort of that bogey team for a few years for the Storm, and they went back and forward for a bit. So I feel like it could be a big game. Might be a lot of tackles through the middle as well. Let's just hope he doesn't fall off too many, and it means we don't have too many demerits.
Yeah, I don't love it. Whenever I play Harry Grant, it always backfires. But I just think he's the option for me, really. The Storm are, four on the trot, 4 consecutive losses. I think they've only lost 5 in a row back in 2004 or 2006, a long time ago, regardless. So I don't think they want that record change anytime soon. So I know I said it last week, so rinse and repeat here. Surely the Storm do something, and it would just be typical that they finally find their feet against the Raiders. I swear the Raiders play so many teams back into form. So, looks like we've got XRP there. That's Matty. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Great to see you here. Yeah, I think it will be Harry Grant is a bit of a default. Phoenix Crossland has made 50 more tackles than Harry Grant this season and missed 4 fewer. So obviously a much better tackle efficiency. But like Dyl said, so much more in attack comes from Harry Grant. Phoenix Crossland just turns into a bit of a tackle bot. Yeah, he moved into the 13, but I don't even think he ran the footy really. He was just there to tackle. So yeah, look, if you're happy with a sort of a base around 45 and you just want to lock that in, Harry Grant can give you a 35 to maybe a 70, 75. For me, I want that ceiling. And look, if he dominates against the Raiders, then that is for me, mate. Anything extra there to add on? Maybe a Reece Robson? Any love for Coruscant a little in a week-long comp, or is it pretty easy lookers with no Brayley?
I think it's tough. I think it's an easy shout to go Grant and just be done with it. There's some decent matchups elsewhere. Coruscant probably was bailed out with the try a little bit of the weekend just gone when the Tigers did put on a big score. And the Jacob Little versus Damien Cook, it just is such a head scratcher. I can tell you now what I am going to do is I'm going to hang up the Damien Cook cards. I think he's done. I think it's time for him to maybe fade to the background and let Jacob Little take over and start playing 80 minutes, because if we get an 80-minute Jacob Little, I think he's going to be on that strongly conceded each and every week. But yeah, Damien Cook's trend of less than 60 minutes resulting in less than 40 points continued on the weekend, 52 minutes, and he got 27 points. It didn't help. He had to move to centre for some of the game as well. But I think, unless we know that he's going to be playing 60-plus minutes, I think there's no way that I'm going to play a Damien Cook. So, for me, I think it's a pretty easy one. Don't overthink it. Play someone that we know, as you said, it's going to give us between a 35 and a 70 and move on and look for some risk elsewhere where there's going to be a little bit more upside.
Love it. Right. I don't think we need to look for too much risk in the middle forward position, particularly not in our 3 strongly considers. Payne Haas and then the 2 terrific Tigers, Terrell and Twal. A lot of alliteration there for the Tigers boys. But those 3 we've got in our strongly consider. We've got Cam Murray and Toby Couchman finally find some relevance in GameDay Squad as our point of difference players. And we're looking to fade both Stefano and Tupane in that Raiders Storm matchup. Mate, let's start with the strongly considers. Do we need to think too hard about these 3?
No, I don't think so. I think May and Twal are just going to continue dominating as we've seen so far, and they sort of just keep going against each other to see who can score the more GDS points, which is great to see as well. And they're working extremely hard. I think the Haas shout is a really good one. Carrigan's ruled out for that high shot. So I think we see a step up from him. Obviously, there's a lot going on at the Bronx with the injury list and the suspension list. So I think we need to see a big game from Payne Haas. And look, he's currently the 4th highest averaging middle with 60. The next best is Isaiah Yeo with 52. So between those 3 that are on screen in terms of Haas, May and Twal, I think they're the sort of the 3 that you're just going to go and back, no doubt. It's then Jackson Ford is where the question marks are. Is he going to continue to dominate through the middle for the Warriors, even though Mitch Barnett's been named on the extended bench? I think he's got the 23 jersey at the moment. Not that numbers mean a whole lot, but I think just potentially if he comes back into the side, maybe it's a look somewhere else, or maybe we just sit with the 3 and not worry about playing a 4th middle at all and look for some upside again with your edges. So, for me, it's the 3 there in our strongly consider, and then maybe looking at a potential point of difference. Maybe Cam Murray. I kind of like the Jack Williams point of difference maybe a little bit more after having a look at some stats and going through it. He's got a consistent 50 points again last week. And once again, if it wasn't for the demerits, he would be in the 60s or almost 70s. He had 5 missed tackles, 2 errors, and a 6 again. So that's 23 points taken off him. But he's been named on the edge, and we saw in round 1 he played 80 minutes on the edge. He finished with 56 GDS points, and the Dogs allow 46.5 to second rowers this season, which is in the sort of the top half of the comp to points allowed for edge back rowers. So I don't mind the Jack Williams shout playing out of position, potentially playing for 80 minutes. But I think it's just a simple one again. The first two, or the top two positions in hooker and middle forward, I don't think you need to overthink it at the moment, and just stick with what Sif Kanga has mentioned, that he's going to play Haastwal and May, as we've said as well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I think I keep getting the Jacko Ford decision wrong. I think I played him for those 2 back-to-back 40s in round 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Faded him for that Storm game, thinking it was going to be a pretty tough one for them, and he obviously scores the try, plays 80 minutes, and now I've got the headache of, well, he's just come off a big score. Barnett is named on that extended bench. It's probably a big no if Barnett does come onto the team sheet. If he's not, then I have to look at Ford a little bit more closely. Mate, Toby Couchman, he was a big guy in the preseason. We were both keen on him, particularly because of how good he was last season, despite carrying a bit of an injury for a number of those matches. He was just getting through plenty of minutes, plenty of work, and could break a tackle, find an offload, and create some attack as well. It just didn't happen at the start of the season, to the point where we saw him get just 42 and 32 minutes in rounds 2 and 3 for scores of 30 and 34, and his brother was the one dominating, and we were questioning whether they'd swap jerseys or something, or the stats people were giving points to the wrong man. But he's finally bounced back nicely. He's had 58 and then 65 minutes. He's had hauls of 57 and 65 points, so he's going along nicely at that 1 point per minute. It's mostly all in base as well. He's got the occasional tackle break. He's got 0 attack points at all this season, and it's got to come at some point. He's pretty good. He's got a pretty handy offload, and with a couple of speedsters in that team, when the things start clicking for the Dragons, they've got to start doing better at some point, you would have to think. And for me, that's got to be Damien Cook and Little on the field at the same time, with their speed through the middle there. But look, Couchman's brother Ryan is still out suspended, so look, Toby for me is an option this week. I don't think there's too much ceiling there. He's likely to get the decent minutes again. Jacko Ford's minutes have been all over the place. They're likely to dish up something similar, although we have seen some better try-scoring form from Ford, which just means that that's likely to regress at some point. Anything why Cam Murray sticks out for you?
Just on Couchman a little as well, as he's available in the under 24, so I think he's going to be highly played in the under 24 competition. So we're talking more about that full round slate, but I think definitely go and look at him for the under 24 competition for sure. I don't mind Cam Murray. He's probably someone else again, similar to that Jack Williams mold, that's sort of going to give you that consistent 50 to 55 GDS points, and probably not too much more. So I think he could be one of those safe point of difference players that you can lock that 50 points away and have a look at other positions to take some risks on. The question marks are going to be over Keon Kalongamatangi. There's a bit of word around that he's been playing injured. Obviously, David Fifita's now out, I think, for 6 weeks or so. So there's Lockie Hubner and Duncan that have come in on the edges. I think Cam Murray could potentially move into maybe an 80-minute performance. Just having a look at the bench as well. It's a pretty small bench with Marmazelis, Sullivan and Garlick taking the 3 of the first 4 bench numbers. Again, doesn't necessarily mean anything, but we kind of look at that saying that more than likely they're going to be the 4 main guys that come onto the field. And those 3 small blokes are not really going to take that spot off Cam Murray necessarily. Maybe they want a little bit more speed from Garlick, maybe through the middle. So potentially that could be the case. But I could see something where Murray's playing more closer to maybe 70 minutes. And if we get that, maybe we're going to get a little bit more from him as well.
Yeah, gee, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Currently averaging 66 minutes per game, just going like 0.8 points per minute. So a little bit down in comparison to some of those other big boys through the middle. He obviously does play a bit of a distributing role, but yeah, with the likes of a number of those guys out, then there's every chance that he does tuck the ball under the wing and carry a little bit more. We've got Joe Tarpanay and Stefano on the fades list. Look, they're fine plays if you need them, if you don't have some of the other blokes mentioned. We just feel like there's not enough upside in those two. They will be going head-to-head. Tarpanay's finally got a few extra minutes under Ricky Roulette. We just don't know what's going to happen. Both have had massive games at a point in time, and both have become super fantasy relevant, but just way too hard to trust at the moment, particularly when, again, we've got a week where there are so many handy edge forwards and plenty of decent pot options where we could have, the top 10 coaches on the leaderboard have 2, 3 or 4 different edge forwards between them. Let's start with the strongly considers. Kai Pearce-Paul, Jacob Preston, after a dominant outing against Penrith, right when things were looking like we could almost recycle the Jacob Preston cards. He finally remembered who Lachlan Galvin is and how to play footy, and gee, that edge was dominant there against the Panthers. Heelan Lukey finds his way into the strongly considers as well. We do have a couple of injuries, do have Dill Lucas out for about a month, David Fafita, like you mentioned. So that just means that there are more options and more diversity across teams, particularly in the forwards, is always a good thing. Just quickly for our audio listeners, we've got Tallis Duncan and Luciano Leilua as some big pods for the round. Finay Fuiaki against the Panthers and Joey Chan after that dismal outing last week. We've got them both as fades. I presume KPP is a pretty big play for you. Is Jacob Preston, are those two 1 and 2? And then where are you looking after that?
Yeah, look, just before we get to that, if anyone's watching along, they've just joined us and are looking and they're seeing some really random names in the comments like Trent Waterhouse and Ruben Wiki. We'll just remind you, we are playing a game where if you name someone we haven't thought of this year from post-2000s NRL, and if you can stump us, then you'll go in the draw to win a card, and that card we'll talk about very soon. So make sure you get your comments in. We're already seeing a heap of names, and we'll talk through some in a moment. Yeah, look, in terms of KPP, I think irrespective of the form that he's in, I think he's still going to be at the top of the list for edges this week, mainly because of the opposition. The Broncos are in all sorts at the moment. As I said, injuries, suspensions. They obviously get Reynolds back, but Reece Walsh is out, as well as a number of others still. And the other thing I think is that we touched on last week is that horrible left edge defense unit of Mam, who's missed 27 tackles so far. Piakura has missed 15 tackles. And then Shibasaki on that side as well, missed 16 tackles so far this season. So right edge forwards are just absolutely killing it against the Broncos. Heelan Lukey last week started on the right edge, was starting to dominate, moved to the left and scored his try because of the Taulagi HIA, which is great to see. He scored his try down that side and rewarded coaches, but he was still dominating through that on that right side as well. And I think KPP is going to do something very similar. The Broncos, because of that, are giving up 69 GDS points to right edge players this season, which is by far and away one of the easiest matchups, I think, for any position, not just the back row, that we'll see this week, and maybe even the whole season, unless the Broncos continue to allow points to right edges. So I think KPP is just almost probably a slam dunk play. I hate saying that because of the form that he's in and playing so well, but it's hard to pass up on someone like KPP. Then for me, it does feel like we're doing a full 360 with Jacob Preston. And we talked about him being an absolute fade last week against Penrith, and we obviously had to eat our words there. And it was a ridiculous game that was played. No one expected the Bulldogs to come out and play like they did. And they from the word go, from that first whistle, they just looked like they wanted to win that game. And Penrith sort of looked like they just weren't keen to play at all. And as a result, we saw how that game ended up. And I think Jacob Preston is just one of those players that we're going to have to follow that form now, mainly because not just for Jacob Preston, but I think, as you said, for Lachie Galvin as well. Lachie Galvin's playing some unreal footy, and I think that connection there is going to be super important this week in the game that they're going to play. I think they're the last game of the round, are they, against the Eels? So we also have the opportunity to lock in Jacob Preston for the Sunday Showdown as well.
Yeah, Jacob Preston turned into a Dally M or a Mortal type player, and it took the Penrith Panthers matchup to get him finally rejuvenated and a solid GDS option. I'm not sure how many people played Jacob Preston. I know he won't run it Blaze Taulagi every single night, every single week. He obviously scored a try assist, 3 line breaks, 4 tackle breaks, and 84 points. So well done if you did keep the faith with him. But he has Ronald Volkman as a matchup Sunday, who missed 4 tackles there against the Titans. And let's be honest, I guess Jaden Campbell, Adamaho were pretty decent there on that edge. But Galvin and Preston, doggies, you'd expect a little bit more dominant through the middle, through the forwards there. So, yeah, I think the Preston and KPP 1-2 punch is fantastic, not just for ceiling, but I think if they don't score or find too many attacking stats, I think their floor in these 2 matchups should be pretty safe. Yeah, it is the Heelan Lukey shout. I don't mind. I like looking at the half that he matches up with as such a big body. It'll be Lukey Brooks there on Thursday night. Burbo will probably be that edge next to him as well. And and those two can miss some serious amount of tackles as well. We did see, like you mentioned, the issue with blokes like Hillam Lukey, Tallis Duncan we saw as well, both in the same round. When an outside back goes down and the coach is hesitant to put an out-and-out back on from the bench into that exact same spot, and they want to do a bit of a reshuffle, get a forward on and move a back rower. It's these back rowers that find themselves out in the centres that can sometimes stifle their points. Obviously, for Lukey, it meant that he could find the try line. Sometimes Tallis Duncan, we've seen with Damien Cook plenty of times, and catch a bit of a cold out there if the attack or the ball's not coming to them. So that is something that we should consider with some of these edge forwards if they're the first one likely to go to that outside backs. Think, Bo Fermor of years past, where we think he's a really good play, and then he gets absolutely nothing out there in the centres because the ball can't find his way out there. Who do you like as a pod shout if we wanted to load up a couple of edge forwards on the bench? Who do you like as your sort of 3 or 4?
Yeah, that's probably the important thing as well as to consider is we've got those 2 bench spots that we may play a middle forward, but there's every opportunity because of the depth of the edge forward position. We might just play the 2 edge forwards knowing that they're probably going to have a higher ceiling. Jado here has gone the Preston and Young combination. Hudson Young's actually someone that I'm thinking about fading this week. Purely based on that matchup against the Storm. The Storm are allowing only 25 points to the left edge. And we saw last week, Lecker scored 8 points against them, where Lecker just completely went missing in a game where the Warriors were dominating. They just didn't need to go to him at all, even though he had probably 2 or 3 really good runs and really set up a platform. They just never went back. And as a result, he scored 8 points. And against the Storm, Luciano is the one that has top scored against them with 41 on that left edge side. So I think that it's quite difficult for me to get there with Hudson Young when there's so many other great players. And look, for example, Olakau'atu's up against the Cowboys. They're allowing 49 to right edges. Lukey, as you said, the Seagulls are allowing 46. Preston against the Eels that we just touched on allowing 45 to right edge, where Ho, KPP, Sua, and even Joe Chan, of all people, scored big numbers against them as well. But it might be that bloke that's playing, and look, he's named on the right edge at the moment, but we saw last week, Ricky did a little bit of swapping and changing, but Noah Martin up against the Storm potentially could be the play. The Storm are allowing 52 to the right edge, so potentially it's the Noah Martin shout. If he gets the run on and doesn't get pushed back to the bench, potentially he could come on and find his way into my side as well. And like you touched on last week, it's pure base that he's loading up in at the moment. It's all those tackles that he's making. It's just unreal to see. But he's also got that upside of a try or a couple of tries, which we saw earlier in the season as well. The other one for me is the Tallis Duncan shout. Really hoping that David Fifita was going to get named this week. It was a bit disappointing that he wasn't, because the Dragons are giving up points to both the left and right edges. They're allowing an average of 53 on the left and then a 61 on average on the right for edges. So either edges, I think, could be dominant. Hubner comes in. He's probably going to move to the right. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like yet. Maybe you have some more information there to give us as well. But I would suggest he probably goes to the right, Tallis Duncan, maybe the left side, and then I think he could be a massive play. Either the full slate as a big pod, or definitely he's going to be highly owned in the under-24 competition.
Yeah, spot on. I think a must start in the under-24 competition with some salary as well. I do expect Tallis Duncan to be there on the left, but we haven't really seen that pair with Hubner. Whether he even starts there is another question as well. We did see Duncan in a rich vein of form last season in that left edge spot where he scored a double or a hat-trick and a couple of doubles in back-to-back rounds, and was one of the best edge forwards for a period of time over 3 or 4 weeks. So, yeah, if we can see that again, running off the hip of Cody with Latrell around the back, we know we haven't seen enough from Fifita yet to really warrant that piece of real estate as a must start, but they're kind of different players. Fifita just wants to run over the top of blokes. Duncan is a bit more of a workhorse and can hit a really nice line there. So, yeah, I think he's a great player. He's already been pretty handy in some limited minutes. So, yeah, look, there's a reason we spent so much time on the edge forward position, because I think there's so many good options there. And when Luciano Leilua is a consideration because he's in some form as well, the edge forwards position is getting pretty wacky. And look, it's finding the right blokes that are going to go off this week. And maybe it is Noah Martin. Just quickly, super impressive. He's made the most tackles out of anyone in the entire competition. And for an edge back rower, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? More than, Phoenix Crossland, Paddy Carrigan, Cook, Brayley, these guys that all play through the middle and big minutes as well. Noah Martin has still made more tackles than a lot of them. Righto, just before we move on to the halves, that's the end of the forwards position. Let's recap some of the plays we haven't thought of pre-2000s. If you want to win a prize, it'll be a diamond card that Dyl will reveal shortly. Let us know an NRL player post-2000s that we haven't thought of this year. We've got a nomination in there for Amos Roberts. Love it. Would definitely have been a GDS gun. Absolutely. Ruben Wiki, a man close to your heart, Dyl. I'm not sure if he's
Tony.
come up with yet. Probably has, I presume.
Tony. I've definitely thought of Ruben Wiki. Yeah. We were going through some of the greats the other day of New Zealand rugby, and Ruben Wiki came up for sure.
And I don't mind the Trent Waterhouse shout as well. I think that's a yes from me. Is that good for you, Dyl?
Yes from me. Yep, definitely Trent Waterhouse. Do you want to go back and just on the side there, we were talking about XRP's Luke DeVico. Yep. Are we going to count that,
no,
even though a lot of his career was pre-2000?
Yeah, I want to go no. I want someone that we grew up watching enough post-2000s, but still someone that has slipped the mind in recent years.
And then Jado's put in the great Scotty Minto. Look, I haven't thought about him this year. I think about him a bit, but I haven't thought about him this year.
No, he's too common for me. We want a waltzing Matt Hilda type, Rory Jason. Love the Scotty Minto shout, but I just think he comes up in conversation too often. Maybe by the bylaws of the game, we haven't necessarily, but come with it. We'll give you another chance there, and we'll put a line through that guess. All right, Dyl, let's move on to the halves position. Three pretty clear options this week, minus Nico Hines, of course, with the Sharkies on the bye. Got Nathan Cleary, Jaden Campbell, Tanner Boyd is back in our strongly consider list. Got a couple of point differences in Fletcher Sharp with the number 1 on his back. Does that mean he can turn things around? He's low on form, sub 40 average. We like that as a potential shout in more comps than just the under 24s. Lockie Galvin after a coming of age game there against the Panthers as another nice pod. We don't really like the Katoa play against the Penrith Panthers, nor do we like Dylan Brown on his return from injury, but both good watches regardless. They are our fades. Let's start with the strongly considers, mate. Is it just as simple as Cleary, Campbell and since they're the top 3 there and the averages available? They've been getting it done, or are you going to look elsewhere in your halves?
I think I'm going to look elsewhere. Cleary's obviously the definite one. Campbell, I think, will be an obvious choice for a lot of people. The Warriors are allowing 52 GDS points to right halves. Hughes failed there last week with a sub 30, but then 2 weeks prior, we saw the 82 from Hines. We saw the 85 from Dewey. But the question mark is then, is it the Metcalf effect that's having on the right halves? Harris DeVita, he was an absolute demon in defence. And probably as a result, Joe Chan got the spray of his life and then the old-fashioned look from Coach Bellamy because Harris DeVita was so strong on that side. So there are some question marks over the Campbell play. I will probably go back to it because he's looking dominant across the field anyway, and he's sort of able to pick up stats and anywhere across the park in any fashion, and he doesn't mind a cheeky intercept and running the length of the field. We've seen a couple of times this season, so I will go back to him, but it's probably just a little asterisk there to maybe come back to this in a week's time and say, is really the Metcalf injury having a massive effect on the way that halves are playing against the Warriors, but then also the way that Tanner Boyd's scoring as well. And you've got some really good stats to talk us through in a moment about Tanner Boyd. My concern, I guess, is the Titans have been pretty good against right halves this season. If we remove Hines' 102 that he scored in round 1, the Titans are restricting right halves to only 28 GDS points since that round 1. So, I think Tanner Boyd's going to be the one for me that falls out of contention there. I think I will play the Cleary-Campbell combination, and then it's going to be looking for a really good point of difference that we can talk about soon. But talk to us about Boyd as a player that you're still pretty keen on, that you're going to go back to just one more time.
Yeah, it is the Luke Metcalf theory. I whinged about it on the Sunday Showdown live show. We have our little whinge segment before we get into the guys that we like in the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. But look, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go back to Tanner Boyd just because of that Lukey Metcalf theory. They play Saturday Arvo at home in New Zealand against the Titans. That's, to me, on paper, very juicy. The 28-point average, if you minus Nicho Hines' massive score, is a bit of a concern. But I don't think it matters with the Luke Metcalf theory. Here are Tanner Boyd scores without Lukey Metcalf in the side. 87, 82, 94, and 62. Now, he's got the Roosters, the Raiders, and the Storm amongst those numbers.
Good.
And he scores with Lukey Metcalf in the side at just 56 and 39. He's his lowest score of the season. So there's definitely a trend there. It's not just a 1 or 2 week trend. We've seen it every single time that Luke Metcalf takes the field. Both times, Tanner Boyd scores suffer. Without Lukey Metcalf there's far more responsibility on Tanner Boyd. And his scores show with 3 scores over 80 and a really safe 62 as well. So, yeah, look, I don't know about Fletcher Sharp. I know he's pretty keen. You're pretty keen on him.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you can convince me to consider Sharp instead?
Yeah, before I convince you on Sharp or another potential half, the other thing, the question mark is there's maybe a bit of rain around Saturday afternoon in Auckland, maybe in North Auckland. So potentially that could make a difference. And Sif Kang has also pointed out that Hanson's on the bench. So there might be a late change there. I don't know why Webby would make that change unless there is a bit of an injury cloud over Tanner Boyd as well. But yeah, Hanson being on the bench, interesting. So there's a couple of things to consider there. The potential point of difference, I think, is going to come in either with, as you said, Fletcher Sharp or maybe one of the Roosters halves in the same game. The Roosters have allowed an average of 53 GDS points to fullbacks this season. Why is that important? Because Fletcher Sharp has been named at fullback for the Knights. They've had enough of Fletcher Hunt in the fullback role, and they're going back with the Fletcher Sharp. That means Dylan Brown and Sandon Smith are in the halves this week. Just quietly, I was hoping that both of them weren't named because there was a little rumor around that Thomas Kant might be kicking goals, and I would have loved to see that, a goal-kicking edge forward once again in the NRL. We talk about that quite a bit. But yeah, Fletcher Sharp for me, named at fullback. I'm pretty keen to see that featuring on the Sunday. So there's an opportunity for him to be a big play on the Sunday Showdown. But I think with the lack of depth potentially outside of our 2 strongly considered, there's no Hines, which means we don't have to have the headache there. I think he might come into a couple of my full slate squads that potentially as that big point of difference. But as I said, on the other side, the other side of the field, the Roosters halves pairing could be in for a big game. The Knights are allowing 50 to left halves and 60 to right halves. So you could go either Sammy Walker on the left or DCE on the right if you like those numbers as well. I know for me, Sam Walker is going to have a massive feature in the under 24 as well as the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. So if you don't want to load up on the pod and Sammy Walker, maybe you could look at the DCE shout on the other side as well.
Wow. DCE back to some fantasy relevance. The matchup matters, obviously. If the stats are telling us to look there, then, probably not something I can get to. I don't mind the Sammy Walker shout. He was obviously someone we were quite high on pre-season. It just hasn't clicked yet for the Roosters. I do like a couple of Roosters outside backs that we'll get to shortly. But, yeah, I think... Look, I'm just going to stick with Cleary, Campbell, and Boyd just quietly.
I'll give you one more.
Jaden
Can I give you one more? I know I'll give you one more and I'll see if I convince you because SC Punish has said that Boyd has a tight hammy. So there could be some change there. And look, this one, this pod,
I don't need to know that.
Is kind of in my strongly considered as well. I was sort of keeping it close to the chest, but I'm happy to give it to you. It's Jamal Fogarty, and it means that you're going to have to play him and you're going to have some certainty that you are going to play him because they are featuring tomorrow night. So you might have to think about this. So far this season, Fogarty's averaged 20 tackles, 45 running meters, and 400 kicking meters. That's a base of 38. Add to that his average of 4 goals per game that he's been kicking. There's 50 points in base with those goal kicking stats. Over the last 3 weeks, he's reduced his missed tackle count down to 2 per game. So if you can keep that down, I think he's a big shout. He comes in against the Cowboys. And although, look, they're on absolute fire at the moment, 4 in a row, they are looking really dominant. they are allowing an average of 74 GDS points to right halves in the last month of footy. So that's Tom Duffy's 74. That's Atkinson's 54, Jerome Hughes 65, Campbell's 86, and then Dewey's 94 in there as well. So if you think that your man, who's kind of a trader, but you've still got his red, you potentially will roll him out in that prime time. If you think Jamal Fogarty's going to have a big game, potentially that's a big call, but you've got to make that decision because they're playing before Tanner Boyd and the Warriors.
Yes, the red Jamal Fogarty is definitely in one of my sides at the moment, but those numbers you just rattled off make it, make me seriously think about whether or not he might be better suited elsewhere. Oh, well, we love plenty of options there in the halves. We got Jado showing his age, I think, a little bit there, mate. Jared McCracken, mostly pre-2000s. Yep. I think he might have retired in the year 2000. We'll give you another crack at that, mate. And Skip's joined us. G'day, mate. A little bit late today, but late is better than never. Thanks for joining us once again. Alan Chernak, certainly someone that I haven't heard of. How many career games? I actually have heard the name, but I don't think he had many career games. Did he? Let us know.
Yeah.
And quick question there on Matty Burton, goal kicking versus the Eels. Yeah, gee, we saw what happened to the Eels last week against the Titans. They were woeful. He's certainly in contention. I just think there's so many good options there in the halves. Look, if you think that Burton can be the pot of the round, keep that one close to you. And I think he can go very well. We could discuss halves for a lot longer. Yeah. We will move on. Let's get into the centre position because even here, plenty of new faces on our team, on our strongly consider point of difference and fade list. And there could be some nice variety here as well, particularly given the default centre in Herbie Farnworth does have a tough matchup. We do have him as a strongly consider there, despite the Penrith Panthers matchup. That is alongside Adam Dewey and Tommy Chester as some other strongly considers. We've got Taylor May and his return from injury as a point of difference, and Tungo with his return to the Penrith Panthers side after the absence of Casey McLean, who is suspended. He could be a really handy point of difference. Both of them would be pretty low on people's minds, I think, given that we haven't seen them run out for their respective clubs in some time. We like Herbie Farnworth as a maybe. Jake Averillo might have the better matchup, but I just don't know if I can get to a Dolphin against the Penrith Panthers coming off a big loss. I think they aim up this round, absolutely. And Ruben Garrick coming off a monster score. If you're chasing last week's points, it'll probably come back to bite you. I don't think he can back it up, particularly without the goal kicking. If there was something that happened to Fogarty, there'd be, you'd look at Ruben Garrick a little bit closer, but that's just more of a don't chase last week's points. There are plenty of other options there on screen. Mate, I presume Adam Dewey playing out of position as a half. The Tigers are on fire. That'll be a guaranteed centre spot for you and anyone else that does own an Adam Dewey card. Where are we looking for centre spot 2 and why?
Yeah, it's tough because, as you said, Herbie against Penrith, it's such a tough matchup. And it shows 28 points to left centres. With the only shining light of Brian Kelly, of all people, in round 4, bagging 58 points against the Panthers on that side. So we've talked about Herbie being matchup proof for what he does in terms of base and power, and I think I'm happy to back that. And there might not be a huge amount of attacking stats there for Herbie, but as you said, there's every chance that Averillo has a big game. He's actually got the positive matchup. Panthers allow 45 down that side with scores of 59, 58 and 61 to Tuala, Wateri and then Toya as well, respectively. So I'm not going to get there either. I'm not going to get to an Averillo shout, but I think I'm going to play Herbie with some trepidation and just hope that the base and power gets me through. The Dewey shout is an easy one. Luai's back as well. With Luai, Dewey's averaging 70.5. Without him, he's averaging 66. So we might even see a little step up from Dewey there as well. But for me, I think the big pod shout is probably that Isaac Tungo coming in to play his 100th game. And it feels like he's been sitting on 99 games for almost a year now. And I feel like they keep talking about it. He's been in the extended and never quite got his chance. He's probably got an opportunity to stamp some authority on that centre spot that he looked to have lost that sort of end of last season The Dolphins are allowing an average of 54 GDS points to that left centre side. I'm assuming he comes in and plays that left centre side straight in for McLean. So there's a really good chance there that he has a big game. Jenkins is obviously killing it on that side as well. So those two might pair up quite nicely. So I think for me, it's the Herbie Dewey shout, similar to what Sif Kanger is saying as well. But there is some question marks over that, the Farnworth, and maybe you've got a better option with that other strongly considered that we can see on screen in Tom Chester.
Yeah, just on Herbie, Panthers defensively better on that side of the field, on the opposition left-hand side of the field. Herbie's career average against the Panthers is a modest 47.7 points per game. That's through 7 games for both the Bronx and the Finns, just the 2 tries. And those 2 tries came in one match as well. He's gone sub 40 twice. He's gone above 50 twice. So not really showing that ceiling against, the greatest team in modern NRL history. So if there's one week that you look elsewhere and that you don't put Herbie in your team, it's probably this one. And Tommy Chester, I think this isn't necessarily a chasing your last week's points. It was a nice 71 score, but he's been going about his business really well. And we said on the show last week that he's getting through a mountain of base, and it just needs that 1 or 2 attacking stats, and he's going to get that massive 60 or 70 plus game. And it happened that straight away there against the Bronx. His space is just insane. 245 run meters. He made 13 tackles. He only missed 1 of them. He's got some really good speed, got some really good power. If he can find a little bit of space there, he's been really damaging, and I think he can be a pretty handy upside play, particularly if you're a bit unsure about the Herbie Farnworth shout. Someone else that's really tempting is Taylor May. We saw his return to the Tiger side at the back end of last season. That combination with Jerome Luai on the left-hand side of the field was pretty elite as well. He was the top averaging centre for a 4 or 5 week period where he was setting up tries and scoring tries for fun. Now, we've seen the Tigers have most of their play go right, and that's obviously through Adam Dewey minus Jerome Luai for the last few weeks. We should expect that to even up a little bit more with Jerome Luai. Let's just hope he doesn't keep stepping back off that left foot and heading back infield, because that Taylor May will be pretty annoyed out there, and hopefully giving him a piece of his mind and saying, give me the footy, because he can break tackles, he can score close to the line, he can set up his winger outside him. I think it will be Makasini out there on the left as well, and that's a pretty electric combination. I think the Tigers will score plenty of points there against the Bronx on both sides of the field. Is he fully good after his injury? Yeah. I don't know. That's always the risk that you and I, we're a little bit more safe fantasy players, aren't we? We sort of want to have a look, and he scores that big 70, and then you go, oh, I wish I played him. I'm going to play him this week, but then everyone else plays him or he has a bad one. So maybe you jump the gun here. Like I said, Herbie Farnworth, if you're ever going to rest him, it's probably this one. Taylor May might just have to sneak his way into one of my sides this week. Do you like that play at all?
Yeah, I really like the play. The concern is, do you play Dewey and Taylor May? I don't know if I like seeing the 2 Tigers centres, even though Dewey's not a centre, seeing them together. You're really relying on a lot of work from the Tigers, along with the May, the Twal, and the KPP. I say it in the past, I've said it quite a few times, I don't necessarily like loading up on teams heavily in GDS, because that's when we have some issues. Even I know last season a couple of times we thought the Panthers were going to have some big games, and we loaded up on Panthers players and we got stung because of it. So yeah, I think it's tough. If I'm going to play a Taylor May, it's going to be with maybe a Tom Chester or a Farnworth, but it's really hard to fade Adam Dewey as well. So yeah, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get to Taylor May this week. I'll probably sit and be disappointed that he scores a massive 70, and I'll be spewing that I didn't play him.
Speaking of damaging outside backs, Taniela Tuiaki is a player we haven't thought of. That's a tick for me. And Sam Tagatese.
Another schoolmate from Skip. Mate, where did you go to school, Skip?
And what happened to your footy career, mate? Let us know. Sam Tagatese, take it easy. I do like that one, Skip. Well done, buddy. We're good to go, mate. Let's get in the wingers. I don't think we need to spend too long on the wingers, simply because Tommy Jenkins, Suafa'alongo have been our 2 strongly considers and our 2 starts just about every single week. Jesse Arthurs has been going along nicely there at fullback, but I don't think you need to think too deeply about the winger position. Obviously, it is a way that you can get different from the rest of the field, but resting someone like Milky Jenkins, who's in the best try-scoring form in NRL history and on his way to about 55 tries or something ridiculous. Su'Afa'alongo playing out of position there. Melbourne should be turning things around at some point, you would think. Is that the winger position, a winger round where we can just lock these two in and move on?
Yeah, probably. I do have one really good pod that I want to talk about in a moment that you can see on screen, and we'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, look, Jenkins, I think it's pretty easy to play the Jenkins-Sewer combination. For anyone that's a bit worried about Jenkins and looking at him and going, well, he's only the try scorer. If you take the tries out, then there's not a lot there. He's actually still sitting around about 40 GDS points in terms of base and power. So that's 200 running meters, 4 tackles and 4.5 tackle breaks per game. So he does have that as a backup as well. The question mark does come up when we're looking at that matchup. It's not a huge negative, but Dolphins are allowing 33 GDS points to left wingers. The top score there is Lehigh Hopperwade's 55, which is from round 5. That's the only positive. Hopper did score a double in that game as well, and we know Jenkins only goes up in 2s or 4s, so we might expect another double from Jenkins there. If you are a little bit concerned about that matchup, then maybe there's an opportunity for a point of difference that I'll get to, as I said. Sewer on the other side, he's up against the Raiders. As I said, great rivalry. There's plenty of opportunity for fullbacks. I think the stats probably don't tell the full story. If you go over to the Stats Lab at the moment and have a look how the fullback rankings are listed, Canberra looks like it's the 7th hardest matchup at the moment, according to those stats. But that does include the Jai Gray 6 points from the weekend. He only played the 14 minutes before going off. So if we take that out, that opposition fullback allowing score is a lot better. It's 50 GDS points. So it's probably more appropriate with probably where we sort of see Fa'alongo and where he's heading. So I think those two are really good shouts. But for me, it comes down to my point of difference that probably will rival Taylor May as the pod of the round, I think. He's obviously going to play in that primetime matchup, but his opposition looks to be a really juicy matchup for him. That's Braden Burns. He's up against the Sea Eagles. He's back from injury. The Manly boys have allowed an average of 61 GDS points to right wingers. That includes 60 to Setu Tu, 76 to Nwangani Tawazi, and 60 to Xavier Savage. They've also allowed 7 tries down that side in 5 games. So there's every opportunity Burns has a massive game. And just to add to that, he's developing a bit of a trend in games so far this season. He's had scores of 32, 69, 24, 81, and then 45. So that's a down, up, down, up, down. And you know you love it. That can only mean one thing. It must be an up game this week for him.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. Yes. You know, an up, down is definitely something that I enjoy. Braden Burns, come on down. You will be in consideration. I don't think I can look past Tommy Jenkins or Fa'alongo. We've got Ganners asking about Jacob Kiraz. Mate, not until he starts showing a little bit more of something. We know that he was struggling a little bit with was it a back or a shoulder complaint? And that's never good for someone that relies on so much power. I've also got a bit of a theory, and I can't remember who was mentioning this. I heard someone talk a bit about wingers that are carting the ball up on that first 1 or 2 tackles from a kick. They're not looking for the offload anymore. They're looking for the really quick play the ball and trying to get a repeat set, because some teams are happy to give that repeat set away early on in the tackle count. And if they can get a nice fast play the ball early on, it just gives their team a couple of extra tackles. So Kiraz is no longer sort of backing into the line and looking for that late offload. He's sort of getting to ground and trying to get up for a quick play the ball. So something to look at. We know that Kiraz scores nicely with the tackle breaks and the offloads. We're just not seeing enough at the moment. So no, not an urgent play for me, Ganners. Obviously, if you think that the Dogs are going to put on a big score against the Eels like we saw the Titans do last week, then that'd be a great way to differentiate yourself from the rest of the field. But no, just Milky Jenkins, Su'Afa'alongo for me. Dyl fullbacks, definitely a number of options here again. I think this week has been maybe one of the widest open weeks, really, now that we've got 6 weeks worth of data to look at and some interesting matchups as well. For everyone listening on the audio platforms, we've got Latrell Mitchell, Tommy Turbo, and James Tedesco as our 3 strongly considers. Keanu Kinney, Jareem Buller, 2 big weeks just gone. They've got nice matchups once again. They're our big points of difference players. Hammer and Tuapiki both statistically very poor matchups. Happy to put a line through them and fade them given the plethora of options we have available. Mate, let's start with some of those strongly considers out of Latrell, Turbo and Teddy. Rank them, please, in your preference from 1, 2, and 3. Yep. And who are you definitely going to start out of that lot?
Yeah, okay. In my first spot, Latrell Mitchell, just an absolute set and forget, I think, every week. I don't think it matters what the matchup data looks like and what's happening with the Rabbitohs. I think he's just an absolute freak, and I'll talk about some of the stats that lead me to that. Second, I probably have Tedesco at this stage up against the Knights, and I think he probably just has slightly better output and slightly better opportunity, maybe, but only just. For me, that third spot is probably a toss-up between Edwards and Turbo, and I'll talk about the way that I've gone about ranking them, and I've actually put Turbo third at the moment, and then Edwards fourth, and that's purely based on the Stats Lab comparison tool. So I went over to the Stats Lab app and checked out their comparison tool. Both players have positive matchups, so both of their oppositions are allowing exactly 51 GDS points to fullbacks. So I had a look at the base and power stats. Edwards' base and power is averaging 42 at the moment, which we probably expect. Turbo slightly less, he's averaging 41, but it's the attack for me. And Turbo at the moment is averaging 24 points in attack, whereas Edwards is only averaging 15. So surprisingly, base and power is very similar for both of them, but it's the attacking stats that probably just has Turbo just slightly ahead of Edwards. And for me, that's probably going to be the makeup of the three. I think Edwards is just going to be pushed to the side. He'll probably be a point of difference that I look at in a couple of other competitions, maybe the Challenger comp. That's my sort of pod play. But yeah, Latrell definitely the number one. He's averaging 70 GDS points a game with a total of 350 across those 5 games. That's 15 points ahead of Dyl Edwards, who's on 335 points, but that's across 6 games. So Trell's average is just absolutely huge compared to everyone else in the competition at the moment. He's getting it done everywhere. He's averaging 43 in base and power. He's got the additional 13 points in goal kicking as well. So over 50 points in base and power for a fullback. That is playing in the centres, albeit, but for a fullback in GDS is unreal. He's got the attacking stats from try assists, line break assists, offloads, plus he's going 1 try per game as well. And the Dragons matchup, it's not a negative one. It's not a huge positive either. They did just restrict Cooler to 24 points, but the week before that, they allowed Purdue 62. So I think either way, Latrell's probably matchup proof no matter what. And so I think you just roll Latrell card out each and every week.
Isn't that insane that he's lining up at centre for his club team? We're slotting him at the fullback position, but he's head and shoulders above the rest. Imagine if he was available in the centres as well, and we had a Latrell, Dewey, Herbie headache every single week if we wanted to still run 3 fullbacks. Mate, might look a bit like chasing points. I obviously love your 3 fullbacks there, as well as Dylan Edwards. I think he could be a bit of a sneaky play as well. But in terms of pod shouts, Dream Buller and Keanu Kinney, both massive scores last week. So it might look a bit like chasing last week's points, but both come up with really plus matchups. We've got the Tigers versus the Bronx at Campbelltown. Now it's Saturday night as well, and I'm not sure the Broncos even know what Saturday means or looks like, because they're always playing on a Friday, and that's got to be a plus for the Tigers. Despite a slow start to the season, Buller only had scores of 32, 33, but recently 57, 53, 80. He's had 4 tries in those 3 starts. And the Broncos are the number 1 best matchup for fullbacks across the competition, allowing 58.7 points per game. Look, they're significantly under strength, obviously weaker through the middle as well without Paddy Carrigan there. We could have a really big pod on our hands here with Dream Buller. I just wish that maybe he didn't go so big last week so that he could be another shout. Let us know about Keanu Kinney as well.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to lock both of Keanu Kinney and Dream Buller into your under 24 competition. And if it was me, I'd be putting quite a bit of salary on both of them as well. Kinney's coming off that massive 90-point effort against the Eels, where he had 3 try assists, 4 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 6 tackle breaks, and over 250 running meters, and probably was hard done by. I think there was maybe another line break in there that he maybe didn't get as well, and definitely a line break assist that I don't think he'd get. That when we were watching live, we talked about that in the Sunday Showdown. He heads over to Mount Smart Stadium, North Auckland. There is a little bit of rain around. Potentially that might be an issue. If anything, I think that's just going to maybe help his running meters and maybe holds the ball a little bit more. But the Warriors are allowing 54 GDS points to fullbacks. That's the fourth easiest matchup of the weekend, according to the Stats Lab rankings. So I think there's plenty of opportunity there for Keanu Kinney. He's finally found some form. The Titans are looking pretty good. I think it's going to be a really tight matchup. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in the game if that rain stays away in particular. But if we just have a look at the Warriors, we've had Fologo and Buller. They've had 50-plus scores. And Will Kennedy, again, of all people, I know I've said that a few times tonight across different people, but Will Kennedy had an 80-point performance against the Warriors a couple of weeks ago. So I think there's every chance. Look, I'll be real. Kenny's probably going to be a much better footballer than Will Kennedy ever was, particularly attacking-wise. And I think that he's going to absolutely rip and tear against the Warriors. And the Warriors might be brought back down to earth pretty quickly this week against the Titans.
You're always pessimistic about them, aren't you? But I don't think that's fair. I think they're going along pretty nicely. A couple of poor losses there through the middle, but I've been very impressed with that win over the Storm. They hadn't had a good record against them in recent history, and they certainly turned that around there in the Melbourne Storm's own backyard. So plenty of options there in the fullback position. The winning team this week is going to get a number of 50-50 decisions right. And you know that you and I absolutely bottle those quite frequently. So maybe we just need to put our heads together. Whoever you go in a 50-50, I'll go the other, and we'll see if we can come out on top. Speaking about coming out on top, here is our consensus starting 13 for the Stats Lab Primetime competition, which is, of course, a competition where you can win $1,000 just for winning a competition that runs Thursday and Friday nights, and that is proudly brought to you by the Stats Lab. Massive shout out to the Stats Lab team for their ongoing support of the Fantasy Bros. Make sure you head over to the statslab.app and check out the awesome tools that they have available with player stats for every game. They've got matchup strength, player comparisons, and so much more analysis to help you dominate GameDay Squad. Now, a lot of the stats that we read out and discuss and help and use to help build our sides are all from courtesy of the statslab.app. So as you can see on screen there, we've got a couple of Storm players alongside Penrith Panthers, Cowboys, and Manly players that are dominating our primetime competition with Stefano, IPAP, and Isaiah Yeo as our three middles. We'll run Harry Grant there as our hooker, Haumole Olakau'atu and Helam Luki on the edges. We've got Nathan Cleary and Jake Clifford in our halves. Obviously, Jamal Fogarty was a big shout there as well. So we'll give you an extra one there for free. Tommy Chester, Tolu Kula on Thursday night in the centre position. Sewer and Tom Jenkins will be pretty popular all week long, let alone just your primetime competition. And Tommy Turbo. We say it every week, but that's a pretty strong starting 13, isn't it?
It's very strong. And there's one team that's really missing from that side, and it's the Canberra Raiders. I'm not sure what's happened there, but
they must be all on the bench.
We're not keen on any of the Canberra Raiders players. But no, I think that's a really strong side. And you're right, there is a couple of bench spots up for grabs. And we did give the Jamal Fogarty one away, but there's plenty of other options as well. Looks like a great side.
And in terms of our week-long consensus, starting 13 for the full round 7, we'll run through that nice and quickly, but we've spoken about these players ad nauseum throughout this evening's show. We've got Payne Haas, Terrell May, and Alex Twal there as our three middles. Harry Grant, hooker, Jacob Preston, and Kai Pearce-Paul on the edges. Nathan Cleary, Jaden Campbell, just ahead of a couple of other halves there. Tommy Chester, Adam Dewey in the centres. Suafa Alongo, Tom Jenkins get a repeat start there. And Latrell Mitchell, our number one fullback of the round. That's a promising starting 13. What could go wrong? Absolutely nothing. If you want a shot at the leaderboard in the top 20, get those 13 players into your side ASAP. And good luck with your bench spots, because that's going to be where the headaches really happen and where the 50-50s need to pay off. BroDown ShowDown. Dyl, 2-1 to you. You've gone back-to-back. You've broken my serve. I got to pick first in player 1 and 3. Yet you've come out on top there, despite me actually winning more total points. Did you notice that? I got more total points across the three players, but you came out on with a victory there, 2-1. And that means that anyone that commented Dyl's name during last week's show or on the YouTube, Apple, or Spotify comment section, will get a chance to win a pack. So we're going to spin a wheel of those coaches. There weren't many. A lot were backing me. They were correct in a sense where obviously I scored more points, but that's not how the BroDown Showdown works. Unfortunately, you've got to win the head-to-head matchups, and that wasn't to be. So you should be able to see on screen here. Let us know when that does appear. We've got Maxi, MP Fantasy Zone. We've got Roshni and Sif Kanga, again, with his blind pick. His blind picks are working pretty nicely. Well done, mate. Let's get that full screen. Let's have
just before we spin that. Oh, you've missed one player, so we might need to respin it again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. You missed fantasy stats as well. We wouldn't want to go. So, Maxi, because of that, I'll give you something special there. So, Maxi, hit me up in the comments. But can we add fantasy stats to that as well?
We can. I'm sorry about that.
I apologise.
And Maxi. Sure how
Maxi, if you win this one. The double, then well done, mate. But yeah, Maxi, hit me up in the comments. I'll or over on Discord.
I'll get him something as well.
Good on you.
Is that back to back for Roshni?
That is back to back for Roshni. Unreal. How good is that?
Sorry about that. Maxi, hit me up on Discord, buddy. Let me know who you need this around. I'll give you something for sure. Yeah. Dyl, what's Maxi? What's Roshni?
Roshni is going to get a 9-player rare. You're going to get all 9 players. So make sure you put a trade up for any of the players that you're interested in. Let's get this pack started. Can you see that on screen there, Stu?
Yeah, got you, mate.
Beautiful. Let's get some.
And we got fantasy stats. A nice, good player there. No problem. He doesn't mind. Threw you in there anyway. Not to be.
Unreal. Good on your fantasy stats. Alrighty. Roshni, let's go. We got a Cam McInnes gold. Max King gold. He had a massive game with, was it a broken jaw or something he played with? Adam Pompey gold. We've got the Luciano Leilua that we talked about earlier. The Platt. Trey Fuller gold. Stower Smith off the bench. Kurt Donahue out at the moment, but should be back soon. Jordan Ricky gold and a Puru gold. Mate, that's almost a full 9 players that you could bring into your side when they are named outside a couple of bench players. That's an unreal pack there. Well done, Roshni.
Yeah, don't mind that at all. Trey Fuller could be very important to some. Maybe during the origin period, back into the season when injuries seem to curtail. But we are hearing that he's looking for a bit of an out and could be starting fullback elsewhere at some point. Rightio, well done to Roshni for that. BroDown Showdown for this week. We've already got a blind bet there from Sif Kanga. Let's hope his form continues because he has gone Stu without seeing the matchups. The matchups are Taylor May against Adam Dewey as the 2 centers, my KPP versus Dill's Preston, and my Tom Jenkins versus Dill's Sua Fa'alongo. So Taylor May, Kai Pearce, Paul, Tommy Jenkins for Stu. Yeah. If you think Dill's, Dewey, Jacob Preston, and Sua Fa'alongo are going to get the win there, make sure you comment Dill's name. You can do that now. You can do that on the YouTube show later on. You can do it on the Apple or the Spotify comments as well. And just like Roshni, you can win some pretty handy cards simply for doing so. So let us know who you think is going to win that. Right, Dyl, let's tie up a few more things before we conclude. What else do we need to do? Let's go back quickly to the players that we haven't heard of. We had a couple of late entries. I think we had Gunners with Matty Orford. I'm happy with that if you are. Love that one. Good on you. We had, where was it? Was it Tony Suka? Yes. Timo came in with Tony Suka. Had a couple of, maybe half a season, 2 or 3 years ago. And then can someone let us know what Tony Sukar is up to? Definitely have not thought of that name in a while. And then who did we have? We had one more, didn't we? Yeah, we had Coach Stephen with Brandon Elliott, another player who sort of had a number of games and then has sort of faded into the, I'm not sure what he's up to either. Let's get that list of names up on screen. And let me replace this with that.
And for everyone playing along, we do have a Jareem Buller, who we talked at length about, and his potential to have a big game this week. I've got a diamond up for grabs for anyone that did stump us with the name. So well done for all of those players. Good luck, everyone. This is for a Dream Bullet diamond, which I'm pretty sure, Stu, you were actually really keen on getting yourself. And as you said, you tried to throw out a name at the start or just before the show went to air.
Can I just confirm we got 6 people on the list? Is that right?
I believe so. Let's just double check our list here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Coach Stephen 6. So we had Kieran Taylor with the Amos shout, Rowan Davidson with Waterhouse, Jado had Taniela Tuaki, Skip had Tagatese, Ganners Orford, and Coach Stephen Brendan Elliott. Unreal.
Have I got Stephen there? No,
mate.
I don't have Stephen there. I've got Timo with Suka. You can tell I don't do this. Dill's normally responsible for this, but it seems to be causing a number of issues with his internet. So I've taken the reins, and I clearly need to if this have a bit more practice. Right.
If this is true, did you get the Tony Suka one in? Because SC Punish has just said that he's been named in the Tigers squad this week. And he's in there. He's got the 21 jersey on.
Wow. Not that I take too much notice of the extended, but I haven't even heard his name in.
No, neither.
Yeah, there you go. Oh well.
But you got us. Good stuff.
Us. Won't happen next week. We'll guarantee you.
Alrighty. Good luck, everyone.
If he wins. Wouldn't it be funny if he wins?
Oh. Rowan Davidson.
Trent Waterhouse. I like it. As soon as that name popped up, I was thinking, yeah. He was pretty handy in fantasy or Supercoach back in the day. One of those edge back rowers that got through plenty of work, Alala, Frankie, Parker, Gallen, Fensom, those group of guys that you could just lock and load and they would score points upon points. Rightio. What a show. That's about it for round 7 preview, isn't it, Dill? Thanks for joining us once again, everyone. I've had a lot of fun tonight. Hopefully, we can steer you into a position on that leaderboard. Hopefully, Dill and I can find ourselves back amongst that top 20 in our 3 main teams. It's been a little bit of a while since we've seen Dill's name in there, so hopefully you can get some of those 50-50s correct. Thanks for joining us once again. We will see you next Wednesday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. We'll probably turn out again Sunday Arvo. Want a bit more support there on the Sunday Arvo show. I know the weekend time slot, 1:30 p.m. is a little bit hard for some, particularly with families and that sort of thing. Dylan and I love jumping on there, talking FantasyBros Sunday Showdown, revealing the players that we like, the percentages, so we can give you a really good insight into who the rest of the field is playing. And if you just need that one sneaky pod to qualify for the $5,000 grand prize, join us on that Sunday afternoon.
And just quickly on that, we've got a special guest this week who has already qualified for the $5,000 prize, and that is XRP, who we saw earlier in the comments. So XRP is joining us. So if you want to get some insight into how to win, then that's a perfect time to join us. So as Stu said, 1:30 p.m. Hopefully that time slot is not too bad for people. We will see you Sunday for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll remind you on the Discord throughout the week as well. Someone who's already qualified and one step closer to $5,000. Dill and I, we haven't qualified yet. I think I've come 4th. Nice and close, but that doesn't qualify me just yet. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good luck with your squads this week, and we'll catch you next Wednesday.